Hello everyone, I welcome you all to Eager Beaver Education, and today we are going to discuss Vision IAS August 2018 issue, and we are currently be dealing with economy. So the first topic is about the falling rupee. So I'm recording this video on 14th October 2018, and Indian rupee has weakened up to 73 mark. So the rupee has registered a loss of about certain value against the dollar since the beginning of the year, making it the worst performing currency in Asia. So in Asian country, rupee has registered a loss of about 10%, and other emerging market currencies like Turkish lira, Argentine peso, and South African rand, they have also seen huge losses, and the investors have lost their confidences. So what is the reason for falling rupee? First is the increasing demand for the dollar across the globe. What happens is that after the 2008 debacle, this is the first time, or let's say this is the first quarter where American GDP, like in the quarter phase, has crossed the 4% mark. So, America's economy is doing very good, and due to tightening of liquidity in the West and increase of rate of interest by the Federal Reserve, this has strengthened the dollar since February 2018, and investors have put their who earlier used to put their market into the developing and emerging markets like India and China. So now they are withdrawing from these emerging markets and are preferring American asset. Second is higher domestic inflation in emerging economies. If there is a huge demand of dollar, so what will happen is that the import of our country will rise. So since India is a import dependent country, so our imports prices rises, because of which the domestic inflation will also rise, because if the input cost which is dependent on imports rises, then the final output also, the price will also rise, thereby inflation in the country will be rising. And also because of trade war between China and America, though this trade war can be beneficial uh, to India if we can provide what in this war China and America are losing. So we can access the markets of the countries, and can very well benefit from China and America trade war. And also because of oil price rises, we know that oil prices are rising, and the West has put sanctions on Iran, because of which we are not after November 2018, we will not be able to import oil from Iran. So these are the problems also. And we are more import dependent than export oriented, so this is the main issue. Apart from oil, we import a lot of other things like chemicals, metals, metallurgy, then gems and jewelries, then coal. So these are all minerals. So these are other things that we import, semiconductors for mobile manufacturing, uh, electronics products from outside. So since we are not innovating and we are not producing enough in the country, we do not have manufacturing hubs in the country. That is why our import bill is higher. And because of this higher imports and lower exports, it will definitely put pressure on our current account deficit, and which is expected to rise from the current target is 3.3%. So there is a expected rise uh, above the 3.3% of the GDP, which is the current account deficit that we have target, 3.3% of the GDP, and 90% of this 3.3% of the GDP has already been achieved. So by the end of August 2018, we have already reached the 90% of 3.3%. That is our current account deficit. So it will be a huge pressure on India, and on our current account deficit. So what are the impacts of falling rupees? So if the rupee depreciates, so it is beneficial for the exporters and it is not beneficial for the importers. So on import, if the imports are expensive, then definitely inflation will rise. On competitiveness, obviously, our since our rupee looks cheaper now. So we can definitely compete with other emerging markets like Vietnam and Bangladesh. On inflation, that will rise. On GDP growth, see, for the short period of time, this GDP will look good. Because of inflation, what will happen, that the prices will bloat up, the prices will look inflated. But it's not, actually the production has not increased, only the prices have increased. So for a short period of time, GDP will grow. But for the longer period of time, what will happen is, since the demand will decrease because the prices have increased and production has not increased yet, so what will happen, the demand will decrease, and thereby later on the GDP figures will get affected in negative way. Next is widening of deficit. So, since the prices of the oil are increasing, so for analysts say, for every $10 per barrel increase in oil prices, so our current account deficit and fiscal balances are disturbed by 0.4 and 0.1% of our GDP. So you can mention such figures in the answers. On tourism, the trips abroad will be expensive and domestic tourism will grow. On employment, those industries that are export oriented like pharma, IT, gems and jewelry, they can create more jobs. What are the steps that can be taken by the government? So the long term solutions are reduce heavy dependence on imports as well as on oil. So we have this national hybrid policy, electrical vehicle that we are promoting. So by 2030 we want that our most of our vehicles become either a hybrid or electrical. And the second, by this the oil dependency will reduce. And by creation of manufacturing hub in the country, by this what will happen is our dependence on the imports for the electronic material will also decrease. Boost export industries that attract FDI instead of FII. So I have made one video regarding how FDI is different from FII and why we need more FDI than FII. So please look at that lecture, it will clear all your concepts. Next is maintain limit on deficit. Yes, we want to maintain our fiscal deficit target, that is 3.3%. But since I have told you that we have already achieved 90% of that, now what the government is coming up with some inflation index bonds. So I hope you know about inflation index bonds. So if you don't know, please comment below. I will make a separate video on what are inflation index bonds. Next is short-term solutions. So what are the short-term solutions? That is increase in interest rate by the central bank to control money outflow. So they are going to increase the uh, loan the interest rate on loans. By this what will happen is that the cost of borrowing will increase. Because the cost of borrowing will increase, the money supply will decrease, and hence inflation will be in control. And the next is using foreign reserve to reduce volatility. So RBI uses its foreign exchange reserves to and sell it in the open market, so that to reduce volatility. But this is not a very good thing. It is not a very good economic practice to use foreign exchange reserves in the first part itself. Foreign exchange reserves should be used as a last weapon, not as the first weapon. The next one, concession financing scheme. So recently, the government extended the concessional financing scheme for 5 years till 2023. What will happen in concession financing scheme is, suppose sorry, an Indian entity wants to Indian entity wants to bid for any infrastructure projects abroad. So what will happen is that that any Indian entity which is expecting to buy some infrastructure projects, so that entity needs loan. So from where they can access loans? So they can access loans from Exim Bank is Export and Import Bank, which is of India. So from there they can access loans. On that loan, like whatever percentage interest rate the Exim Bank gives to the Indian entity to bid for infrastructure projects abroad. So of that percent, 2% will be exempted, and the government will give concession on that 2% of the interest rate which is being charged by the Exim Bank to the Indian entities who want to seek for loans to bid for projects abroad. So I have told you in brief what it is. So Exim banks extend credit at a rate not exceeding LIBOR. So what is the LIBOR? LIBOR is Intercontinental Exchange London Interbank Offered Rate. So it's like a interest rate, and it serves as a first step to calculating interest rates on various loans throughout the world, and it is a benchmark rate that the world leading banks charge for short term loans. So this is like a benchmark rate. Suppose 6% is the rate. So it's just a suppose one. It's just, so for if we have taken 6% as a LIBOR, means 6% is the rate, and this is what world leading banks uh, set their benchmark rate so that loans can be extended for short term period. So Exim Bank will not exceed the LIBOR average of 6 months plus 100 basis points. The repayment of the loan is guaranteed by the foreign government. So LIBOR, if LIBOR sets the 6%, if LIBOR like benchmark rate is 6%, so 100 basis point means 1% increase, like 6% plus 1% increase, like 7%, the Exim Bank will give uh, the loan at 7% of interest. This scheme is under the Ministry of External Affairs. Very important. You should know which all schemes come under which all ministry, because these questions comes in your UPSC prelims also, and in UPPCs also, and other state PCS examinations also. So, and even in other exams like RBI, CB also, they can ask under which ministry it comes. So this comes under Ministry of External Affairs. They select the project keeping in view the strategic interest of India and send the same to the Department of Economic Affairs. So what is the significance of the scheme? That it will help in generation of substantial backward linkages, induce job, demand for material and machinery in India, and also goodwill for India. So if we invest in foreign projects, so there will be a demand, domestic demands also will be growing, and bidding large projects prior to the introduction of a concession finance scheme. So Indian entities were not able to bid for large projects abroad since the cost of financing was high. Now, since government is giving 2% exemption or concession on the interest rate which is charged by Exim Bank, so the uh, Indian entities can bid for strategic projects abroad. Next is enabling monetization of infrastructure assets in India. So the government is drawing up a plan to sell public sector infrastructure asset. So the government is identifying assets including rail lines, national highways, and power transmission lines for monetization through infrastructure investment trust like InvITs. So, what is an InvITs? Infrastructure Investment Trust. These are mutual fund like institutions that enable investments into the infrastructure sector by pooling small sum of money from multitude of individual investor for directly investing in infrastructure. So it's just like a mutual fund. So what happens is that you buy, suppose, a mutual fund of rupees 2000. It's just like that. So it enables the investment to come in the infrastructure sector. What happens is that it allows the pooling of small sum of money. It's just like mutual fund, everybody pools their small sum of money, and that is invested in the infrastructure projects so as to, and obviously you will get some good returns on that. That is why you are investing. So this is being done by this infrastructure investment trust, and so as to return a portion of income to unit holders of InvITs who pooled in the money. Obviously, you pooled in the money, that money is used in the infrastructure projects. Whatever the benefit comes, it will be given back to you. InvITs are regulated by SEBI. So, the SEBI exam which is going to happen, this is very important. InvITs are regulated by whom? SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India. Very, very important. So the government is identifying assets like rail lines, national highways, power transmission, and want to monetize it through infrastructure investment trusts. So how they are going to do is monetization of assets being held in public sector undertaking through creation of InvITs will fast track the agenda of improving infrastructure in the country. So this year budget suggested the use of InvITs to monetize roads by NHAI, and the government feels the role of central public sector enterprises to develop new infrastructure and create a market rather than earn returns from their investment. So the 12th five-year plan 2012 to 2017 projected an investment of 55.75 trillions in infrastructure during 2012 to 2017, more than double the 11th five-year plan. So the investment that the 12th five-year plan, which has ended in 2017, has projected an investment that was twice that was earlier projected in 11th five-year plan. So India's banking sector is actually under pressure. So the huge amount of NPAs and bad loans. So what has happened that the banks do not have enough money to give as loans. So this kind of InvITs, which allows that which acts as a market where the people can invest in money and can have the money back with profits, is something that the government is looking forward to. So what is the advantages of monetization? So with monetization of assets, the strengthening the capital position of public sector banks will be done, and this will create new growth opportunities also. And with the increased amount of flow of money into this InvITs, what will happen is that the new projects will be undertaken, infrastructure projects, and the usage of pension funds, mutual funds, and insurance funds can be done into InvITs. So this can be a probable question that whether funds like pension funds, mutual funds, and insurance funds can be used for InvITs, yes or no, because currently ILFS is quite in news. So it is very much like um, important for us to understand the markets, the capital market and the money market. So it is very important for us to understand both the markets and how both of them work, and what all funds can be used in whichever trust, or yes or no. So we should know this. So funds can be generated in greenfield projects. Greenfield projects are those projects which are which will be started from the scratch, and brownfield projects are those projects which have already been in the process of making, and if more investment is required for completion or scaling up the project. So it will make up for the lack of private investment. So the next scheme is the next news is unemployment allowances. So the Andhra Pradesh government has announced Mukhyamantri Yuva Nestam scheme, which is an unemployment allowances of rupees 1000 per month to the unemployed youth of 22 to 35 years of age through DBT using Aadhaar. So International Labour Organization report World Employment and Social Outlook trends. So you must remember, not should but must remember, ILO publishes which all reports. So World Employment and Social Outlook Trends 2018. So the number of unemployed person in India is expected to rise from 18.3 million in 2017 to 18.6 million in 2018 and 18.9 million by 2019. So the unemployment rate is expected to rise at a static rate of 3.5%, and World Bank in its comprehensive report on India's economy opined that India needs to create a lot of salaried jobs, like formal jobs, to step up its growth to a middle income country. About 65% of the population in the country has an average of less than 35 years. A large section, so our demographic, which can be a demographic dividend, like because uh, our population, like average population is less than 35 years, will become demographic burden if not utilized, if not given jobs. The case of unemployment allowances in India like these social insurance and social security allowances. Uh, Employment and unemployment comes with concurrent lists. So since they are in concurrent lists, so both center and can state make the laws on it. So Manrega is the only law in India that guarantees 100 days of employment to all the rural areas. However, several states like Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Puducherry have announced unemployment allowances to the youth based on the degree they possess. So universal basic income was something that was proposed in economic survey 2000, I think 16 17 it was proposed. The whole chapter there was on pros and cons of universal basic income. But you also, I think you must analyze upon this thing that giving 1000 rupees per month, because if they are given allowance of rupees 1000, so they'll not be given other benefits of health benefits, and they get benefits under the Food Security Act and all these. They will not be getting all that benefits if they get an allowance of rupees 1000 or 2500, which was projected by economic survey 2016-17. So if such allowances of rupees 1000 or 2500 is given, then think of that, what is the prices of food, the food security. Under the Food Security Act, these poor people get food of rupees 3 to 1 rupees only. But if they are left to fend for themselves, is our 1000 rupees enough to spend on one person per month? Is our 1000 rupees enough? So you can think about this, that giving an allowance of 1000 rupees will not serve any purpose. It's just to come themselves into a good limelight that they are doing this. But if there should be a committee should be set up on deciding what should be the universal basic income. 1000 rupees or 2500 will not work, considering the health expenditure, the expenditure on food and other needs, also clothing, shelter, and all these things. So do you think that 1000 rupees per month are enough? So justification for unemployment allowances is that they act as a safety net to the people during unemployment. According to Keynesian concept, when the economy falls into recession, there is a need for increased consumer spending, and consumer spending like this will aggravate the demand. The idea is good, but the price that is being set is not good, or not even up to the mark. 1000 rupees or 2500 is not something that a person can spend and can give to the rent, buy clothes, buy food, and do all the other activities also in that 1000 or 2500 is not possible. And health expenditure also. So it will give purchasing power to people who are likely to spend it locally. So if universal basic income has to be given, then it has definitely has some pros, and they definitely has some criticism or the weak point also. Because if the government start giving people universal basics income, since it was earlier said that 65% of our population which is under less than 35 years of age. So if government starts spending to such a huge amount of population, so think about the fiscal deficit which the government will be heaping upon itself. Jobless insurance is a subsidy and an incentive to stay unemployed. So if you get a good amount, let's say 5000, 6000 you're getting, the person will not have a need to work. Then it penalizes the workers and employed people. It raises the cost of hiring, suppress personal savings, and waste, fraud, and administrative costs will also be there. So what are the way forward? There are three demographic groups in urgent needs of job: the growing number of better educated youth, uneducated agriculture workers who wish to leave agriculture districts behind, and young women who are better educated than before. So these are the three sections. So they want urgent need of jobs. Very, very important. So you can write these points in your answer writing. A better industrial trade policy is required. Steep fall in tariffs after 1990s and inverted duty structures have damaged the MSME sector, because the our economy got open. So what happened was that foreign industries were established. So MSME sector, which had the huge potential of creating jobs, was impacted hugely. Special packages should be provided to labor intensive industries. So apparel and garment sector got a good amount of special package, and which lead to better production of apparel and garment sector. And this sector was particularly working very good after the special packages. So you can read about this in the economic survey also in 2018, 2017-18. They have talked about the special packages given to the textile, apparel and the garment sector. You must read about that. Next is urban development can be aligned with manufacturing clusters to create jobs. Infrastructure investment like Amrut by the government always create many jobs. So urban development, obviously, manufacturing and create building of urban infrastructure will give many people jobs. Then engagement between urban development and MSME ministry to ensure infrastructure is developed in towns and MSME clusters are more. So this is also being done. Cluster based skilling programs are also being done, and schools need to be revitalized, and vocational and scientific education should be included. Next is UPI 2.0 launched. So recently NPCI has upgraded UPI with enhanced features. So let us study about NPCI. It is an initiative of RBI and Indian Banks Association. So Indian Banks Association comprises of 10 banks, both private and public sector banks. And under the provisions of Payment and Settlement Acts 2007, it is an umbrella organization for all retail payments and settlement system in the country. So for all payments, retail payments and settlements, so it's just like Paytm that you use. It is similar on that lines. It also manages the UPI platform. So NPCI manages the UPI platform, and it also links all the ATMs in the country. So let us read about new features in UPI 2.0, that is linking of overdraft account. Just like current account and saving account, overdraft account are also now linked, which will provide the same facility in normal overdraft accounts. And next is one time mandate account blocking, means that you can pre-authorize a transaction and you can pay that amount later, so that the customers do not miss their payment deadline. Next is invoice in the inbox. Then next is security layer in QR. So the app allows the users to scan the QR code, just like Phone Pay and Paytm does. You go and scan the code by QR. Increased transaction limits. So many banks have increased their daily transaction limit from 1 lakh to 2 lakh daily, but certain banks have not raised. They have still been under 1 lakh rupees. These are the challenges. And second one is the lack of initiatives from the banks for penetration of QR codes for UPI. So not all banks are initiating for the QR codes, whereas if you see other wallets like Paytm and Phone Pay, so they are increasingly encouraging use of QR code. So this is also the lack of initiative on the part of the banks. Next is if you send invoices in the inboxes, so it will create security risk. Next is overdraft feature will lead to overspending, and UPI 2.0 does not have a grievance redressal mechanism. The standing instruction features that allow recurring payments from user bank accounts towards loan payment or bill payment after specific interval enabled by a one-time digital mandate need to be included. Just like in your Paytm also, or even in your bank accounts, or like bank app also, so there is like a feature of recurring payment. So like once, suppose it's a Wi-Fi payment that you have to do every month on a specific date, so you specify the amount that you need to pay, and every month from your account that amount will be deducted. And so that like often it happens that people forget to pay their bills, not because they don't have money, just because just because they forgot. So this recurring payment thing, which is available on the bank's apps also, and on the Paytm and Phone Pay also, so this is not available on UPI 2.0. So you should know about all these challenges and all this things, because they can ask in the bank interviews also, and upcoming examinations also. So this becomes important, and you must know. You never know. Just like this year UPSC 2018, they asked question on Aadhaar card, so they may ask question on these things also. So you should read everything. Don't leave anything. Don't think that this is not something of UPS or UPSC level. Everything is of UPSC level. So UPI is a mobile application platform that merges several banking features and facilitates seamless fund routing and merchant payments. So what are the key features? That immediate money transfer, just like Paytm, single mobile application, two-factor authentication. So there will be virtual addresses, so they don't need your account number or card number or your IFSC number. So they create a virtual address of yours, which already in their databases is linked to your card number, account number, IFSC. So you don't need to use your these card number, account number, IFSC. So there will be no uh, theft relating to from your bank accounts. So, what are the benefits of using UPI? Is the round the clock availability, because it has replaced NEFT, RTGS, and IMPS, and it is suitable for e-commerce and mobile commerce also, and it has replaced cash, barcodes based payments, and people don't need to use the credit cards and debit cards, and it pays the utility bills also, and exact amount can be rendered. Next is what cannot be done, important. So customers cannot link a wallet to UPI. Only bank accounts can be added. So only your bank accounts can be added, not your Paytm or Phone Pay wallets can be added. Important, very important. They can ask in UPSC also. Once payment is initiated, it cannot be stopped. Amount more than rupees 1 lakh cannot be transferred, since only few, I have said only few have raised their like this limit from 1 lakh to 2 lakh. Only few, not all. As of now, UPI is only available on Android. Maybe it is on uh, iPhone also, but I have not checked on my iPhone. Next is proposal for city level GDP. So this is a very important and very interesting thing. Just like GDP of the center, GDP of the state, so there is a proposal for city level GDP also, so that they can find out which all cities are there, uh, which needs either a little push. So a little push from the government, like by giving them certain incentives or by analyzing their problems. So what will happen is that the government will get to know that these are the very good working districts, which can by our help, their production can also be increased, and the city level GDP will also increase by the government intervention. So this city level GDP is an approach to find out the good performing districts, and to emphasize on their problems, so that better achievement of their city level GDP can be done, and every year their GDP should increase phenomenally. And this also helps in identifying those cities which are not working up to the mark, and government can also get to know that what are the lacunas, why they are not working efficiently, and what all can government do to uh, improve their current level of GDP. So various approaches are being talked about in city level GDP, that is top down approaches. Just like in top down approach, what happens is that the city level GDP is compared to state, or city level GDP is compared to center. So by this ratio, they find out the city level GDP. So the estimates are for the specific region or for the metropolitan region. Next is bottom up approach. In this, these mirror the SNA 2008. So what are SNA? So let us read about SNA. These are System of National Account 2008. This is the latest version of the International Statistical Standard of the National Accounts adopted by United Nations Statistical Commission. So SNA is a international level statistical standard. In this, what happens is that there is an integrated complete system of account which enables international comparison of all significant economic activity. So what happens is that everybody, like every country, uploads their accounts, their economic activity on the this SNA, System of National Accounts. So when they upload their data of their economic activity on this System of National Account, what happens is that by the use of statistics they can compare the two countries with each other. So for comparison of like international comparisons of countries, this SNA has been made, and this has the data, a lot of data of countries um, economic activity. However, the adherence is entirely voluntarily and cannot be rigidly enforced. So this is SNA. So how in India this approach is being talked about is at city level. So what is their idea is that cities should also upload their economic activity data, every of their accounts on something on the same platform like SNA. So if every city uploads their data, so there can be a comparison made between the cities, that how are they performing. But again, since India is a very diverse country, so from region to region, cities to cities, there is a huge like myriad of varieties, and because of geographical reasons, historical reasons, cultural reasons, socio-economic reasons. So like there are many factors because of which each city is different to each other. Even in a state, even in a state, some districts and cities are performing very good, and adjacent districts and cities are not performing good. So this happens. So and collection of huge amount of data, because we have not been very active since like past for digitally uploading the data, so we don't have datas of our past years. It is like in current few years that we have scaled up our digital initiatives and digital India initiatives. Before that we had um, uh, digital activities taking place, but not on a very huge scale. Even the government was not very proactive using for the digital activities in all the sectors and all the spheres of working. So the data collection is a very humongous task. So and even the cities are different because of all the varieties that I have all told you. So first of all, collection and calculating data. Second is comparing the two uncomparables, because only the like should be compared. So this is that these are the reasons that the bottom of up approach is not something that is desirable in the country. Next is significance of the city level GDP, that I have told you, that rapid growth of urban sector, because if we know what all the cities which are doing very good and contributing very well, so we can help them in improving. And 60% of India's GDP in 2011 was contributed by urban areas, and 75% we have this target that 75% of the GDP will be contributed by urban areas by 2020. So, wise fiscal decisions made by municipal bodies and investors. Next is like if we have this city level GDP, so even the municipal bodies and investors can use this data to leverage the economic strength of a particular city. Provide vital indicators for urban development. So if we have data, so we know, after like collection of data, we know what are the lacunas, in which all sectors are there lacunas, and we can make vital indicators for the development of the urban sector. And this would highlight India's city at global level. According to Global Metro Monitor Report 2018 by Brookings Institution, several Indian cities rank in the 300 global cities with the fastest GDP growth. Like the GDP of Hyderabad is at 8.7 and Surat is at 7.9. So if we have such sort of city level GDP, so we can also list in top 300 global cities which are fastest GDP growing cities. So what are the challenges? Again, complex exercise because lot of data is required, and like current data collection is also focuses on state level estimates. In India, MOSPI calculates national GDP and sets the methodology for estimation of GDP at state level. Sampling and data collection is thus currently focused only on the state level estimate. What all data we currently have is up till the state level, center and state level, not at the city level. We don't have the data, and it requires a very important thing. It's now it requires a clear definition of city boundaries. So as GDP is defined as the output generated in a specific area within a specific time, so we need to define the boundaries also of a state, of a particular city. So then only we can justify the GDP definition, because it is the output generated in a specific area. If we don't have a clear city boundaries, so GDP calculation will be very difficult. Next is unconventional hydrocarbon. So Union Cabinet has recently given permission for exploration and exploitation of unconventional hydrocarbons like shale and oil gas and coal bed methane gas under the production sharing contracts and CBM contracts and nomination field. So I'll explain you what happened earlier and what is now this current scenario. So earlier what used to happen, suppose there is a field, there is a field in Jharia in Jharkhand. Now you suppose one company is there, suppose Reliance owns a field in Jharia, and what this is we are talking first situation, we are talking that is prior to uh, approval of exploration and exploitation of unconventional hydrocarbons. Prior to this, so scene scenario 1 is prior to approval. So पहले क्या होता था कि suppose there was one field in Jharia which is owned by Reliance sector. तो रिलायंस सेक्टर को पहले ऐसा होता था कि जब वो लोग परमिशन लेते थे तो वो सब एक्सप्लोर या एक्सप्लॉइट सिर्फ उन्हीं मिनरल्स को कर सकते थे जो कि जिसकी उनकी परमिशन मिलती थी. लाइक पहले मिनरल वाइज बिडिंग होती थी. एक अगर उनको कोई फील्ड मिली है तो अगर उनको सिर्फ कोल एक्सट्रैक्ट करने की ही बिडिंग मिली है उस फील्ड में से, तो अगर उनको माइनिंग करते हुए सपोज कोई दूसरे मिनरल्स मिल जाते हैं या कोल बेड मीथेन गैस रिलीज़ हो जाती है, तो वो टैप नहीं कर सकते उस कोल बेड मीथेन गैस को, उसका यूटिलाइजेशन नहीं कर सकते उस कोल बेड मीथेन गैस को. उनको उस मीथेन गैस को हवा में छोड़ना ही पड़ता था, तो एटमॉस्फेयर उससे पोल्यूटेड होता ही था, बिकॉज उनको राइट्स नहीं थे कि जो कुछ नए तरीके के मिनरल्स मिल रहे हैं या इस तरीके की गैसेस जो रिलीज़ हो रही है उनको टैप कर किया जा सके और उनको फर्दर यूटिलाइज किया जा सके. सो दिस वाज समथिंग दैट यूज्ड टू हैपन अर्लियर, बट लेटर ऑन जबकि अब ये अप्रूवल मिल गया है, तो अब क्या है, अब ये है कि अब अगर उनको एक फील्ड मिल गई है, सपोज देयर इज़ अ फील्ड अलॉटेड टू रिलायंस, तो उस फील्ड पे जो कुछ भी आता है, कोई भी हाइड्रोकार्बन्स, कोई भी मिनरल्स उसमें आ रहे हैं, कोई भी गैस रिलीज़ हो रही है, वो सब कुछ एक्सप्लॉइट कर सकते हैं. सो दिस इज़ द बेनिफिट ऑफ गिविंग परमिशन फॉर एक्सप्लोरेशन. एंड यहाँ पे एक हाइड्रोकार्बन विजन 2025 दिया हुआ है. ये बहुत ही जनरल इन्होंने अपने विजन पॉलिसीज़ बनाई हैं कि सेल्फ रिलायंट होंगे, प्रोग्रेसिवली इम्प्रूव करेंगे प्रोडक्शन स्टैंडर्ड्स को, क्लीनर ग्रीनर इंडिया बनाएंगे, हाइड्रोकार्बन सेक्टर्स एज अ ग्लोबली कॉम्पिटिटिव इंडस्ट्रीज़ बनाएंगे, फ्री मार्केट्स प्रमोट करेंगे, ऑयल सेक्टर को इंश्योर करेंगे. तो दीज आर वेरी जनरल पॉइंट्स दैट यू कैन लाइक read it and make certain key points and can write in your answers. Very, very general point. So what is the benefit of such a move? So that I've explained you. Now what will happen is that earlier the minerals which were not being able to explode and exploited, and the gases which were released into the atmosphere. So now if we tap it, so new investments will occur, and this will help in increasing our economic activities, and we will achieve our hydrocarbon vision of 2025 also, uh, of ensuring cleaner and greener India, because if the coal bed methane gas and shale gases will be used, so and if they are explored and exploited, and if they are utilized very well, so our dependence on oil, diesel will decrease. And new innovation and cutting edge technology will also come up, forging new technological corporations, and this will be a complete shift from one hydrocarbon resource type to uniform licensing policy. Uniform licensing policy, I have already told you that in the field, whatever comes up, you can exploit everything in that field. So there are some important specific initiative taken to enhance the domestic natural gas production, that is 100% FDI. So what is the meaning of FDI and what is FDI? I have explained it in a separate video where I have talked about FDI versus FII. So you can watch that and understand what is actually the meaning of FDI. So they have approved 100% FDI in hydrocarbon sector, and they have come up with new guidelines like new domestic natural gas prices guidelines of 2014, and marketing and pricing freedom for new gas production is also there, and oil and all these prices are now market linked. Gas pooling mechanism for fertilizer sector to encourage utilization of fertilizer units in the country. So these are the some initiatives, you can read it. So they have reduced the custom duty from 5% to 2.5% on LNG, and all these things you can read that. For ethanol also they have reduced the GST for ethanol, I think from 18% to 5%, ethanol also. So you should just confirm it. I am like 95% sure it is the same. Ethanol GST has been decreased from 18 to 5%, but you should also check it once. Other steps taken towards enhancing the production of unconventional hydrocarbons are that oil ministry has recently included shale in the definition of petroleum. Next is hydrocarbon exploration and licensing policy was introduced in 2016, which provided for uniform licensing for exploration and production of all the forms of hydrocarbons. I have explained you about this uniform licensing thing. Next, second is open acreage policy. So what happens in open acreage policy? It is that it enables the company to ask for bidding for oil and gas blocks without waiting for the announcement of bidding. So earlier what used to happen is that the government used to call for bidding, the companies would come and then bidding process would take place, but now it is not the case. Companies can bid for oil and gas block without waiting for announcement of bidding. This is the open acreage policy. Third is easy to administer revenue sharing model, and fourth is marketing and pricing freedom for the crude oil and natural gas. So you know that the oil prices are not market linked. A very important thing is that the cabinet has approved marginal field policy or DSF policy. So in marginal field policy, what happens is that marginal field policy, what marginal means, that small. So even small fields that cannot be monetized earlier can which were isolated like locations or small size or prohibitive development cost or technology constraint can now be used to for domestic oil and gas production. So these small or isolated uh, fields which were earlier not used are now able to augment the domestic production of oil and gases. So there is a shift towards a gas based economy. So we are moving towards the gas based economy. So we are encouraging the use of coal bed methane gas, which if utilized, uh, this will help India to achieve its COP this Paris Agreement, COP21 Paris Agreement of achieving our carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas emission reduction. Our targets will be able to achieve quite comprehensively and quite nicely if such gases are used in the transport sector. Next is safety, security and environmental aspects in petroleum sector. So recently, Standing Committee on Petroleum and Natural Gas has supported a safety and security and environmental aspects in petroleum sector. So this will help firstly to formulate a guideline, because you must have come across many times that in industries, that in petroleum industries highly inflammable hydrocarbons are used. So you must have come across that there is a blast in any unit of industry. So this occurs because people are not using standard operating procedures and violating the work permits, and they do not have enough knowledge of operating the units. So that is why such explosions used to occur. Um and other issues that they have talked about is that multiple regulating bodies are there in the oil exploration and production segments. The Directorate Generals of Mine Safety, that comes under the Ministry of Labor and Employment, and OISD, that comes under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and in the oil processing, PESO and PNGRB, which comes under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So you can see that so many ministry and so many departments are coming: Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So three ministries are there and they are regulating. So one is regulating this Ministry of Labor and Employment. They are regulating the exploration thing, the mining thing they are regulating. And also the OISD, which comes under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. They also, in oil exploration and production, they are uh, regulating. Second, in oil processing and distribution, Ministry of Commerce and Industries is regulating. So there is involvement of three ministries in the exploration till the processing and distribution segments. So they have talked about OISD. Let us read about OISD and PESO. So OISD comes under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. It means Oil Industry Safety Directorate, that formulates and coordinates implementation of a series of self-regulatory measures aimed at enhancing the safety in oil and gas industry. So they have been talking about self-regulatory measures. Next is Petroleum and Explosives Safety Organization, PESO. So this comes under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and it controls the admin and administer the manufacturing, storage, transport and handling of explosive petroleums, compressed natural gases and hazardous substances in India. So all these are being administered and controlled by PESO, which is a Petroleum and Explosive Safety Organization, which comes under the DIPP of Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Very important. You must learn about this. So we have incidents of oil spills, poorly trained workers, pilferage of oil pipelines. So some antisocial elements, what they do is uh, uh, they pilferage some oil pipelines so that major hazard happens. Transportation of petroleum products. So for transportation of petroleum products, they are asking for installation of GPS in every truck so that they can monitor what the path with where they are going, and they can also, like with the GPS, what happens is that they tell you na, which path should be taken, which road should be taken for the safe and without traffic and movement of the vehicles. So GPS should be installed. So way forward is formation of a unified safety board for, again, the three ministry. Instead of three ministry, there should be a unified board that should look after the safety, and they should make some safety guidelines. Second, it should be environment friendly. Third, safety and security audit should happen. So periodic audits and update of and upgrade the security system.